Hello and welcome to OnCamera, Onfido's interview series where we chat to some of our resident experts here at Onfido. Today we're chatting to our VP of Research about the topic of artificial intelligence. So before we get started, let's meet our guest. Hi Mohan, how are you?
Good, thanks Charlotte. It's a pleasure to be here.
So can you first tell me a little bit about what it is you do at Onfido? What exactly does being the VP of Research involve?
In terms of what a VP of Research role does, what does that involve? So I wear many hats. One of the hats I wear is a low-level technologist who works with the machine learning scientists to bring the best solutions in the marketplace, the best solutions in technology to build them, to develop them, to evaluate them into the IDV space. Then I wear another hat, which is interfacing with our customers to understand what their problems are. Of course, manage and motivate a top-notch team of machine learning scientists and engineers. Along with that, there is also the interfacing with the academic community, where we are constantly exchanging ideas, learning from and sharing our work with them in form of papers, conferences. And finally, I also wear a hat where we support our community in different events, both AI and non-AI.
And obviously you have a huge wealth of experience kind of working in artificial intelligence. So I guess for people who don't know, could you maybe break it down into the simplest terms? What exactly is artificial intelligence?
Yeah, so there is a lot of misconceptions around artificial intelligence. And we can give Hollywood and the creativity of the directors and the producers there for a lot of these nice misconceptions. But they've also painted some very nice visions of AI for us. So it is a mixed bag, and it's worthwhile to clarify this. So artificial intelligence is artificial, which is a computer, and intelligence, which is the ability to learn and adapt and apply knowledge that you learn from data or information. So when a computer system is able to mimic the human abilities to learn, adapt, and apply knowledge, we call that artificial intelligence.
So I guess you kind of touched on it a bit there, that artificial intelligence is solving very specific problems. And at Onfido, what we do is we prove a user's real identity by comparing their identity document with their facial biometrics. So could you explain a little bit about how specifically AI kind of feeds into what we do at Onfido?
So at the very top level, the four sort of pieces that make for the identity verification process itself, all of those four pieces are served by AI models. The first piece is the biometric matching, which is getting a biometric from the user and getting a biometric from the document and making sure that those two biometrics match. In our case, it's a face. The second thing we do is unpacking the document itself, which means extracting the data from the document. The third piece is doing fraud detection on the document to ensure that the document hasn't been tampered with. The document hasn't been misrepresented, or the original document is not present. The fourth piece of this IDV application is fraud detection on the biometrics themselves, which means that a user isn't trying to pass off as someone else. So at a very high level, on all of these four pieces, AI powers Onfido's application.
What is it about AI that's so important to us? Like, what's the benefit of using it at our company?
Yeah, so about 7 years ago, this new revolution began, the AI revolution. And it was powered by three things. One is the preponderance of data for these large, capable AI models to learn. The second is the machinery, the computational machinery has finally caught up for us to be able to train these highly capable AI models in real time, or not so much real time, but in practical time, which means that we can train a model in a day or two and be able to deploy that to production. And the third is a set of mathematical tools that have allowed these models to be very capable. So when all of these three ingredients came together, machine learning based applications have been able to go beyond human performance levels. So we can go to superhuman performance levels. And therefore, when we apply that to our identity verification application, we're able to bring both automation speed and performance at unprecedented levels.
On the other side then, are there any limitations for companies like us using artificial intelligence?
So I wouldn't quite call them limitations. I would call them, I would look at it this way. AI is a very powerful tool. And whenever you use a powerful tool, you have to use it with care. It requires a certain degree of sophistication and mastery before you can use a powerful tool. Otherwise, you end up hurting yourself. And so much like any powerful tool, there are several protection mechanisms that you have to build around AI systems. And especially when you serve a mission critical application like ITV. Now, for example, if you were serving a Amazon search or a Google search, if the best answer was the third or the fourth or the eighth option, it was okay. It wouldn't be the end of the world. But in identity verification, we don't have that choice. We can't have the right answer come second. It has to be first. So when you use AI to serve an application such as this, you need several protection mechanisms to be in place. And these include things like confidence models, concept drift detectors where the data is wild and the model may never have seen that data. And so you need to build protection. If this new kind of data shows up, then you need to stop it before it gets to the model, because the predictive capability of the model itself may not be as strong. And then there is another piece which is called know when you don't know. Whenever you build automation in the world for anything that runs in an unsupervised manner, it must know when it doesn't know, so it can trigger an exception path. If it's given a piece of data that it has never seen, it can't predict it. It must raise its hand and say, please help me here. I don't know what I'm seeing here. And so if you don't build these additional protection mechanisms around this really powerful tool, then it can cause a lot of unintended consequences in a real world system. So I wouldn't call them limitations. I would call them use with care.
I guess challenges as well then, because I guess if the system flags that, as you said, a model that something that it hasn't seen before, does that then come back to, I guess, everyone that's built the system to factor that in?
Yes, indeed. So you have to build what I had called an exception path. So you have to have an exception path. In our case, it's a human in the loop system where when the machine is unsure, we eject that out to the human in the loop. The human can then guide the machine with either the right answer or a data label, or sometimes even the human may not be sure, right? And so we would then send that off to our customers saying that, look, this is a caution case. We have no idea because either the image quality is very poor or the human submitted a document that they don't accept for the IDV service or what have you. So the human in the loop does two things for us. One is it allows us to complete that check for our customers where the machine is unsure, but it also then is turned around and helps the machine get stronger. So every time the machine encounters something that it didn't know, then we can use that to train the system to get smarter and better.
Great. That already actually answers one of my other questions, which was, is there anything that we're doing to improve our AI on Fido? And I guess obviously that human in the loop is one part of it, but is there anything else that we're doing?
Yeah, there are actually several things. So human in the loop is one. So there's a customer centricity, which means we connect back to our customers and try to understand how their use cases are evolving with time, because this is such a dynamic world, and especially given COVID-19 right now, so many things are changing in terms of how services are accessed, services are used, new services coming online. And so customer centricity is a large way in which we decide how to evolve our systems so that we can serve our customers better. The inbuilt protection, which is the exception path, is of course there to help our systems get better. And a third aspect is that the technology space, the ecosystem is evolving rapidly. There are a large number of researchers who are working on these problems, and they're publishing papers, releasing code, and we collaborate with several of them in universities. And so we are constantly looking to bring new elements, better models to help improve our services.
And would you say that's a unique aspect of our AI, is that we're continuously doing it, those improvements, or is there anything else that we're doing to that makes our AI use of AI stand out?
From Onfido's point of view, I think that we are very careful. Our use of AI, which is such a powerful tool, is done with care. So what this means is that when we serve this mission critical application, as I was telling you, you need to build those protection mechanisms, and they need to be carefully engineered in well-designed pipelines, which allow you to be both scalable and flexible. Scalable means that we can bring in new use cases, new documents, new demographics into our system seamlessly and scale our performance to these new entrants into our system. And flexible means that if we need to fine-tune one part of the system is not rigid. We make it flexible in such a way that we can fine-tune for one demographics or one document or one use case or what have you, without breaking our system and requiring an entire redesign.
And I guess more generally then, looking to other businesses, do you think they're looking to use more AI? Is it something you think it will play a bigger role going forwards?
Yeah, so you can think of this as in three ways. The first way is a discovery phase. So a business is always looking to make efficiencies and bring more value to their customers. So in terms of improving efficiencies, a business is, as they look inwards, they can use AI in many ways inside their businesses. So that capability is just growing and growing rapidly, exponentially, with the number of researchers working in different areas and companies recognizing that this is inescapable right now. You have to dive into this space and use this really powerful piece of technology. The second is what I'd call chaining of applications within your internal world. So sometimes you may decide that you broke an application or a use case or in your products because you didn't have a better technology. But now AI is offering you this end-to-end learning mechanisms that you can actually not just replace one piece of your pipeline or your product or your service or your internal process, but you can replace entire classes of these application services or products or processes with AI-driven systems that are end-to-end. And there are, of course, so many use cases that are disappearing completely. Right? I mean, we used to go to banks. Now there are challenger banks that are completely virtual. So businesses will see complete applications disappear and replaced by much lower cost, high performing, and highly efficient AI systems. So these are some of the ways in which businesses are going to continue their use of AI in their day-to-day operations, whether it be their product, process, services.
And I suppose following on from that then, is there any advice that you'd give to businesses or CEOs who are thinking about using AI as part of their business models?
Indeed. This is a very good question. This is something that I ponder constantly because we look at it from Onfido's perspective to see, what are we doing wrong? What can we do better constantly so that we can make improvements inside? So, of course, the untapped potential of AI is amazing. Right? There is just so much to go with AI that we're in our early infancy, I'd say, in terms of how we can use this technology. However, having said that, AI has provided really amazing levels of performance in so many applications that first, as a CEO, if you're thinking of using AI, I think you should just jump in. Because if you don't jump in, your competitors are going to jump in and they're going to have certain levels of performance that you cannot match. Okay, so step one, jump in. Even if it means you do a proof of concept and prove to yourself that there is no other way, no way AI can serve your case, you must jump in and try to make it work. Second, step two, AI takes time. There is no shortcut. By the time you actually go from a good proof of concept system to production, to robust production, to scalable performance, you're looking at least 2 to 3 to 4 generations of your AI systems. So the sooner you start, the faster you can get to your third and fourth generation where it is actually delivering that high performance value that it promises. Finally, it's not just about building a product. It is about keeping maintaining the AI models, because data is wild and data comes in crazy and changes and evolves and lives. It's almost like the living data problem, that you have to invest in both the scientists and the resources, knowing that after you've deployed your fourth generation system, you still have to constantly work on it for two reasons. One is the AI space is evolving so rapidly that you have to stay on top of it to pull the newest technologies and apply them to your product lines. And of course, build new technologies yourself. But second is, because of this living data problem, you have to constantly update your models, because they would not have seen this new data that comes in. So while AI is pretty amazing, you have to make the right investments and make them both at the right time and at the right levels. Those investments in resources, in compute, in expertise, and holistically looking at your discovery phase so that you can take full advantage of this technology.
Thank you for joining me today and sharing all of your clearly very in-depth and amazing knowledge about AI.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.